All right, so this is the last part of the Shadows of the Galaxy card review. We got the last bit of them a few days ago. I'm going to go through them. Now, there are still some constructed playable cards here, so it's not just like a full dump of the leftovers. There's a few rares, there's a legendary card. There are going to be some that I skip over a little bit just because they're clearly not meant for Premiere. But yeah, let's just get right into it. The first one here is Val. It's a 2-cost 2/4 in blue with the Underworld trait. Has a bounty, deal 3 damage to a unit. So that's not great. When she dies, she deals 3 damage to one of your own units. But also has a when defeated effect that gives 2 experience tokens to a friendly unit. Now, you are allowed to stack these however you want. So when Val dies, you can decide if you want to give 2 experience to something before your opponent deals 3 damage to something or after. Now, rate-wise, she's a little bit overstated for a 2-drop. However, it's to the defense part of her, not the attack. So the best 2-drops right now are 3/3s, right? But there are very few of those. And they do have like 6 total stats. She's 2/4. I think the issue with her is that it's going to be a little difficult to actually get this to trigger exactly when you want it. The 2 attack doesn't trade particularly well, but the 4 health actually like defends her decently, which means it's not going to be always super easy to like jam her into something in a productive way that then also causes her to die and get you the bonus. The bonus is weird, right? You're losing 3 health on a unit, but that unit is gaining 2 health and 2 power, basically. I think it works well with shielded units because then, right, the shield just absorbs all the 3, and then that shielded unit gets all chunky. I think the first place I'd probably want to look at with Val would be in Gar Saxon, actually, because I think his best build might actually be with yellow because of the shielded units and yellow having some of the better cheap upgrades, and I think she could do decent there with those shielded units and the fact that experience just is an upgrade, so it'll actually give an extra buff with Gar. The rate's decent here. I'm just not sure. I just think it might be a little too clunky in a lot of decks to use her. All right, Hunch. Henchman is a 4-cost 3/4 shielded in villainy. This is not meant for constructed. There's not much to do with it there. It's like not a terrible card, but it's not good enough. All right, Desperado Freer is a 5/6 in Hero Red. It's a spaceship. It has a bunch of white blank space in its tech box, but that's because, you know, it's big, and it's really big. It's got fire spray stats. I still don't think it's going to be quite good enough, actually, because, you know, it doesn't come into play ready. Your opponent's going to have a full turn to figure out how it wants to handle this. That's kind of the whole trick with fire spray, is that it's very hard to ever react to it the turn it comes into play. So even though this is 1 cheaper than fire spray, that ready ability is worth so much. But I think there's at least some place to look at with this card, maybe in Han, the new one in particular, where it can come on down as a 5/4 on the 4 resource turn. But overall, I think it's probably not going to be good enough, but it is very well statted, and I think it's going to be quite good in limited. All right, Valiant Assault Ship is a 4-cost red hero spaceship, so another red hero spaceship. This one is a 3/4 with Saboteur. It also has an on-attack trigger. If the defending player controls more resources than you, it gets +2 for the attack. Once again, I think it's probably not quite good enough. 4-cost 3/4 Saboteur is not quite an aggressive enough stat line. Now, if it was always a 5/4, that would be much better. 5/4 Saboteur for 4 would be decent. It would actually be kind of what the card right before this in Han is, but this would also be something that could come down a turn earlier, because in Han, again, you could play this as a 3-drop. But overall, in Han, if it has 2 health, I don't love it. Outside of Han, I think 3/4 for 4 is not quite a competitive stat line. The ability itself won't trigger very reliably, probably not until like turn 6+, maybe when you're playing Wrecker, you're able to kind of then get this online, but at that point, is this going to be an exciting card? Yeah, I think it's a little lacking for Constructed. Principled Outlaw is a 4-cost 4/4 in Hero Yellow. It has an on attack, you may exhaust a ground unit, and it also has Smuggle for 6. So, once again, I think the stats are probably what's going to hold this back. I actually kind of like the on attack trigger. It doesn't have to exhaust what it's attacking, right? So it can just go face and exhaust something. Having Smuggle is always pure upside. Lando can actually just play this for 4 from the Smuggle row, but that's like you could just play it from your hand for 4. So I don't know if that's any good. But basically, I think if this had 5 health, this would have been a much more exciting card. But at 4 health, I don't think it's going to quite do anything. Wanted Insurgence is a 3-cost 4/4 rebel, so that's overstated with a good trait, but it does have a negative bounty, deal 2 damage to a unit. As far as we're concerned, that's a really bad bounty because aggressive decks, which is where this would most likely want to be, play a bunch of units, and those units are going to take 2 to the face when this dies. It's not quite overstated enough to be worth that bounty, in my opinion. Twin Pod Cloud Car, 2/2 neutral for 3. It's a spaceship, has Restore 2. We don't need to talk about this one. Gamoran Retainer is an interesting one. This is a 2-cost 3/2 Underworld in green, and it has Sentinel if you control another green unit. So, personally, I think this is a pretty clear replacement for Viper Probe Droid in any deck that's playing green for the most part. The only thing that the Probe Droid would have that I think would be slightly beneficial is the fact that it can pop out of Vader because it's a villainous unit, and this can't. I don't value the information that Viper Probe Droid gives you too much. I don't think it's that relevant. This having Sentinel sometimes is very relevant. 2-cost Sentinels are going to be premium, like they haven't existed much. We have one now in blue, the 2/3 Pike Sentinel. I think this is going to be really helpful for like Palpatine decks and potentially like Vader decks, just these bigger control decks that want like a cheap way to mitigate damage, and that's what this is going to be able to do as long as you can turn on the effect. It also has Underworld. Ooh, Jetpack. So this is a cool upgrade. It's a 2-cost yellow upgrade. It gives +2/+0 to a non-vehicle. It also has a when played effect, give a shield token to the attached unit. At the start of the regroup phase, defeat that token. And has Smuggle for 4. So the shield is only for the turn where you play the Jetpack. But come on, let's use the shield. Let's play Jetpack and attack into something. I think that's pretty good. And where I think this will really shine is Gar Saxon. I've mentioned him before with Val. But this, giving +3/+0 in a Gar Saxon deck and that shield is going to be quite strong, I think. And it's kind of exactly the upgrade, like the 3rd upgrade I think I wanted. Like we had Snapshot Reflexes and Hotshot Blaster. I think those are both good yellow upgrades to play in Gar Saxon. And I think this will be a nice 3rd one. That shield, like that can turn this card basically into removal because of it's giving a bunch of power, 2 or even 3 in Gar Saxon, and that shield's going to prevent. So like basically anything you put this on will be able to kill something, turning this into a removal that then leaves behind value. Smuggle is, yeah, again, just pure upside on it. This card's pretty cool. Liberated Slaves are 3-cost hero yellow. They are 3/5 with Fringe Droid, Twilight Wookiee. So, bunch of white text, white space, right? It has no text. Has a bunch of traits. The only relevant one is Wookiee, but it's not even really a particularly relevant trait. But it's a 3/5, and 3/5, all of a sudden, that doesn't even seem that special. We've gotten, I think, 3 or 4 of them in this set, in addition to what we had from the previous set, which was like Boba Fett and Emperor's Royal Guard out of Palpatine deck. I don't know if this will even like be able to make the cut anymore, because we've got another card later in yellow neutral that is a 3/5, and we've got like Cassian Andor as a much better 3/5 than this. So yeah, it's wild. Like, I think this card would have seen play in set 1. I'm just not sure it's going to see play in set 2. Oh, speaking of the devil, DJ, our last legendary. This is a 3-cost 3/5 in Cunning. It also has the Underworld trait and a smuggle ability that costs 7 yellow, right? So you have to be in double yellow to play it for 7. Otherwise, it would be 9 if you were just in single yellow. When played using smuggle, take control of an enemy resource. When this unit leaves play, that resource's owner takes control of it. So it yoinks a resource from your opponent. That resource will come into play under your control. You'll be able to use it for as long as DJ is in play. Now, just a couple of rule stuff. With Lando, you can definitely cheat this for 5, but if you can't blow up the resource you steal, Lando leader specifies that you have to blow up a friendly resource. A resource you own, right? And you do not own the resource that you steal. Ownership in this game refers to the person whose property the card is, right? The Lando unit also doesn't really work with this, because it says return a resource to its owner's hand. When you do that, the resource that, if you chose the resource you stole, it won't go into your hand. You can't put cards from your opponent's deck into your own hand. It'll go back into your opponent's hand. But it will permanently deramp them in that case if you wanted to try that. All right. Got that out of the way. This is a 3/5 for 3, so it's a good stat line. We talked about that with the previous card. This is better than the previous card because it has more text on it, and it has the Underworld trait, which is a more relevant trait. I think this is going to be sneaky good. I think this can slot quite well into the current mono yellow Boba decks, and if there's other mono yellow decks, I think definitely going to want to give this a good look. Especially like Lando, who can do this ability for 5. I think there's going to be games where you just like snipe wins with this. Like it's 7 resources. Like your opponent's counting on like next turn super laser blast or something, or maybe you're doing it on the turn they hit 8, but you have initiative and you steal it, and then they just like can't do something that they absolutely needed to do. This can also stop leader deploys, especially expensive leaders. Like you got the 7, your Vader opponent got the 7. Flip DJ, take a resource. They're at 6 now. They can't not deploy. Maybe they were planning on doing Vader plus a 7 drop or something, and their whole turn gets bricked. I think just because of this like sneaky, potentially game-busting ability, and the fact that the floor on this card is simply just a 3-cost 3/5, which is, you know, a lot of time that's all Boba Fett unit was, right? It's not like his ability was triggering left and right all the time. Like sometimes he was just 3/5 for 3, and that was good. And this does that too, and just has this potentially really high impact ability. So yeah, I'm pretty high on this. I think it's pretty niche, right? It's double yellow. It's not like that ability is going to slot into every deck, but if a deck wants a 3/5 and they are playing yellow, they'll probably play this card over like the one we just saw. They're not going to play it over like Boba Fett if they are villainous, but they can play it next to Boba Fett. Yeah, cool card. Commission's another cool one. This is a 1-cost green event. It says search the top 10 cards of your deck for a bounty hunter item or transport card, reveal it and draw it. Put the other cards in the bottom. It also has a smuggle for 3, so notably when you smuggle, you're actually generating card advantage with this. Otherwise, it's just filtering. So this I like to compare a little to Recruit, because Recruit did a similar filtering thing. It just searched the top 5 for a unit. This goes much deeper, and I would look mainly at Boba Green for this, just because Bounty Hunter, Boba Green plays Bounty Hunters. Transport, basically, I looked at all the transports. The best one is Fett's Fire Spray. So, you know, that gets played in Boba. Items, there's a few cool ones, like the Jedi Lightsaber, Fallen Lightsaber, Dark Saber. Those are all items. There's a few other little ones. But for the most part, I think If you're going to play this, it's because you have Bounty Hunters and Fire Spray in your deck, and Bounty Hunters and Fire Spray, that usually means Boba Green. I liked recruiting Boba Green. I think this is probably a better version of it, although you'd have to check the math and see like your hit chance, but this does dig pretty deeply, so I don't think it has too much of a whiff potential. Alright, this is Guavian Antagonizer. It's a 1-cost red villain for 2/3. It has Underworld Trooper, it has Saboteur, and a bounty draw card. It's another one of those 1-cost with the negative bounty draw card. This one I think is pretty junky. I don't think Saboteur is worth your opponent drawing a card. The stats are just 2/3. There's nothing particularly exciting about this. Enticing Reward is a cool little bounty. This is a 1-cost yellow bounty. It has attach unit gains bounty. Search the top 10 cards of your deck for 2 non-unit cards. Reveal them and draw them. Then if the unit isn't unique, you have to discard a card from your hand. So it's a draw 2, and like draw 2 cards out of 10 that you kind of pick. If it's a unique, otherwise it's still like you can still get both the events that you take from this, and you just have to discard another card from your hand, so it doesn't have to be one of the 2 you get. This looks like it could slot decently well into like the blue-yellow control decks that play tons of events. Those decks were playing cards like Mining Guild TIE Fighter sometimes to draw cards because they were running out, and I think this might be like just a better replacement. Those decks play tons of removal, so it shouldn't be too hard to like squeeze in a turn where you like pay 1 for this and then remove the unit and you draw 2 cards. Those 2 cards can be like Vigilance and Super Laser Blast, right? This is digging 10, which is pretty deep, and you get to get any 2 non-units. So yeah, I think this has certain potential in that kind of deck. I don't know in like a more typical deck that plays only like 14 events if this is going to be quite good enough, and bounties in general are often pretty clunky, but specifically in like the blue-yellow control decks, I think there's a potential that this makes the cut there. And this is something that might help it. It's a 1-cost event in yellow. Bounty posting. It says search your deck for a bounty upgrade, reveal it, and draw it. You may play that upgrade paying its cost. So it searches your deck for any bounty, and you can immediately play it. Now you can't play it for free, but so you're basically playing a 1 tax on whatever bounty you get. But it's any bounty from your deck. It doesn't cost you an extra action, since this action sheet just lets you immediately play it. I like this card. I kind of wish it was in red or green, because I think Bosk green would have loved this card. Bosk yellow might still love this card. It's just my favorite bounty is the green one that gets a 3-drop unit. But overall, I think this is pretty decent. This might work decently with the bounty we just saw in like a Boba blue or some other yellow-blue villain control deck, where you can basically just use this to find that bounty and then immediately play it. That's only a 2 resource play altogether. You then do the removal and you draw 2 more cards. So yeah, I think this is a pretty strong effect. Like, this is just 1 cost to get any bounty is like, it seems like it's pretty good. My only worry is just like, are bounties good enough, right? I think this card's good enough. It's the bounties that might not be. All right, Heroic Renegade, 2-cost hero red unit. It's a 2/3 Underworld. It has grit. So this, in my opinion, has exactly 1 home, and that's in Han, the new Han, where you can play this as a 1-cost 4/1, which is pretty cool. You can squeeze it into a lot of turns. It has a lot of power for a 1-cost unit. I don't think really any other deck has any business running it, but that deck does. Trandoshan Hunters, 5-cost red villain unit. It's a 6/4 Underworld and Bounty Hunter, so those are good traits. It has Overwhelm. Has when played, if an enemy unit has a bounty, give an experience token to this unit. So it can come in basically as a 7/5 Overwhelm if your opponent has a bounty. Makes me think a little bit like, is this like Steadfast Battalion, just like a different version of that? Like, Steadfast Battalion needs your leader, but then it can come in and be a 7/7, and like with Energy Conversion Lab and Ambush, this can also ambush for 7 if their opponent's units have a bounty. I think overall, it's not going to make the cut. I don't think Steadfast Battalion is really going to make the cut anymore in this set, at least my current impression is that it won't, because we've just gotten bigger and badder units that can kind of be better in more general situations. And I don't think this is really replacing any effect that you wanted out of Steadfast Battalion in particular, and I don't think it's doing that any better. And more, it's also like a little more situational in my opinion, but it does have nice traits. So like, yeah, I don't think so. All right, Hunting Nexu is a 4-cost red unit. It's a 4/4 creature. If you control another red unit, this gains raid 2. Nah, it's not good enough. Like, yeah, 4 cost being able to hit for 6 is nice, but it's pretty conditional, and the health isn't quite where you want it to be. It has no relevant traits, so I don't think it's quite there. Ruthless Assassin is a 2-cost 3/3, so that's exciting. It's villain. It has Overwhelm, but it also has, when played, deal 2 damage to a friendly unit. It does have to shoot itself in the foot if it's the only unit you have in play, so it's not like you can get around that downside, and I think that downside is way too large to warrant running a 2-cost 3/3 Overwhelm, even though it has cool traits. You know, the Bounty Hunter thing is interesting because of Toro, but I don't think this is good enough. All right, Weequay Pirate Gang, 4-cost green unit, 3/3 ambush, has Underworld, and has Smuggle for 5. So 3/3 ambush for 4 is not good enough. Now in like the Boba hero deck, it could ambush for 4, which is a little better, but it's still just like kind of measly and almost always will die into whatever it ambushes into. Smuggle is nice upside, particularly in like Hondo, where this can be a 5-cost 4/4 ambush that also didn't cost you a card, but I don't think this is very good in general. All right, Enforced Loyalty is a 2-cost double green event, so this is hopefully exciting. It says defeat a friendly unit. If you do, draw 2 cards. It is unfortunately not very exciting. I don't think this is any good. I'm a little confused by it. Like, I get, like, you kill a unit that kind of has served its purpose and draw 2 cards, but, like, come on. The upside on this is, like, so minimal to be worth a slot in your deck and 2 resources. I'm so far really unimpressed with most of the double green cards we have gotten in this game. All right, Imprisoned is a 2-cost blue upgrade. It's a rare. Attached to a non-leader unit. Attached unit loses its current abilities and can't gain abilities. So it doesn't alter power or toughness or health for that matter. It just like kind of freezes all their text. I don't think it's worth a card, honestly. I think like there's not a lot of units that are only there for their text, at which point you're spending a card to just like stop part of what the unit's doing, but it can still like brawl with you. Yeah, like it answers Dr. Pershing 1 for 1, and then he just sits there. But yeah, I don't like it very much. I think the fact that you can't even do it to leaders like kind of really knocks it down a peg. All right, this is our last card. It's Mystic Reflection. It's a 1-cost blue hero event, and it has the Force trait. It says give an enemy unit -2/-0 for this phase. If you control a Force unit, give the enemy -2/-2 for this phase instead. So it's our only Force payoff. Wait, no, we had Palpatine's Return. That was another Force payoff, but a different kind, right? That was it didn't actually require a Force unit in play. It just made it better when you targeted one in your discard pile. But Mystic Reflection is like kind of akin to like it binds all things and Force Throw. These cards that primarily, I think, are like good in Chirrut, and I think this would be good in Chirrut if Chirrut would be good, which I'm unsure of. I'm not sure he's going to survive this set, at least, because we didn't get really any Force units that I think slide in particularly well into a Force-centric deck, especially in Hero. I mean, we got Rey, but I don't think Rey is a particularly good card, and I don't think it works particularly well in Chirrut because she's a 5-cost, and you don't really want to be doing 5-cost units on Chirrut's turn. But I think Mystic Reflection in general is quite powerful. For 1 cost -2/-2 is a very powerful effect. I know it doesn't seem that like game breaking, but I mean, Make an Opening was a good card, or still is a good card. Does the same thing for 3 while giving you some healing upside. But like 1 cost is kind of a cheat code. Being able to like squeeze in really cheap cards really helps with turn sequencing. And the fact that -2/-2 is significantly better than like deal 2 damage, first of all because it gets through shields, but also because shrinking that attack means that even if you aren't able to defeat it with this card, it makes trading into it with another card much more profitable, as whatever you shrunk won't be doing damage back to you. This is a card that I think makes sense into decks trying to play Force Synergy. In Hero right now, that really is just Churret. Like, I guess you can try to do something like that with Rey now. You can still try to build toward that with Luke. I just was never impressed with Force Synergy in those decks because those like in Luke at least, the leader coming out on 6 just felt too slow. Rey has that same problem. And so Churret, again, is like where all Force stuff is. It's like the first place I'll look. In this set, unfortunately, we just didn't get much to upgrade that deck, at least not as currently constructed. So I think it's going to need a little bit of a revamp, but I certainly don't think we're revamping out of Force Synergy stuff. Like, It Binds All Things and Forces with Me are both really powerhouse cards. And I think Mystic Reflection is also a pretty powerhouse card that would fit well into a Force archetype. Also, that art is awesome. All right, so that's a wrap for the Shadows of the Galaxy review. I hope you enjoyed them. Went through, I think, every single card. I don't know if I'll do that next time. I might just like pick the ones that I think are worth talking about. But I wanted to, cover every single card, give my thoughts on them. I'm really excited for this set. I'm gonna start getting some deck videos out. We're gonna get some tier lists out for like legendary cards, and then maybe eventually like a top X list for something else. Yeah, and stay tuned for some really cool deck videos, and as the set progresses, I'll definitely be getting into like some tournament stuff as well. All right, if you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe, and until next time, take care.